The Krelak Dominion had spent 300 cycles preparing. Their war fleet, a cloud of living metal and hate, hung just outside the Milky Way's spiral arm. They had studied the Galactic Council's defenses for a century. They knew the Council's patrol routes, their response times, their political weak points. The Krelak were patient. They were silent. And they struck at dawn, Council Standard Time. On the 231st day of the galactic year. Dawn meant different things on different worlds. For the Council's capital station, Nexus Prime, dawn was a simulated golden glow that crept through the observation domes. Most ambassadors were asleep. Security was at its lowest shift. The Krelak fleet dropped out of warp less than 1 million kilometers from Nexus, their weapons already hot. They targeted communication relays first, then shield generators, then the docking bays. Within 60 seconds, Nexus Prime went dark and silent. No distress calls left the station. No Council ship could scramble. The Krelak commander, a scarred old warrior named Vrek, watched the tactical display with cold satisfaction. "The Council is blind," he said. "Now we cut off their limbs." His fleet split into 5 strike groups. One headed for the Taurian shipyards, another for the supply depot at Silos 4, a third for the mining colony on Krill's belt. The 4th and 5th groups stayed near Nexus to crush any local resistance. The plan was simple: destroy the Council's ability to repair, refuel, or reinforce. Then, with the Council crippled, the Krelak would demand total surrender. They had done this before to 3 other galaxies. It had never failed, but something felt wrong to Vrek. The Council's outer sensor buoys had gone offline too easily. No alarms, no automated countermeasures. It was as if the Council had forgotten to defend itself. That was not impossible. The Council had grown lazy and bureaucratic over the centuries, but Vrek had not survived 300 cycles by ignoring his instincts. He ordered a single scout ship to investigate the Sol system. Humans, he had heard of them. A young species, barely 8,000 cycles old. They had joined the Council only 40 cycles ago, mostly as a joke. The older species called them the noisy children. They had no impressive technology, no psychic abilities, no natural weapons. They were just stubborn. The scout ship jumped to the edge of Sol. It sent back one image before going silent. Vrek looked at the image. He looked again. Then he froze. The human homeworld Earth was surrounded by a ring of metal. Not a defensive platform. Not a shipyard. A solid, unbroken band of alloy and weapons that stretched completely around the planet. And beyond that ring, arranged in a precise geometric pattern, were what appeared to be millions of smaller objects. They did not look like warships. They looked like cargo containers, but there were too many, and they were moving. Slowly, silently, they were positioning themselves between Earth and the outer system. Vrek ordered a second scout. It never returned either. The only data he received was a single line of text in broken Krelak. "You are in our sky. Move." He dismissed it as a translation glitch. He had a war to win. The attack on Nexus Prime had succeeded beyond expectations. The Council was paralyzed. Ambassadors were trapped in their quarters. The Taurian shipyards had surrendered after losing 3 dry docks. The Xylos 4 supply depot was burning. By all measures, the Krelak had already won. That was when the first human ship arrived at Nexus Prime. It was not a warship. It was a rescue vessel. A blocky, ugly thing with mismatched thrusters, and what looked like welded-on armor plates. It ignored the Krelak blockade entirely. It simply appeared a few hundred kilometers from Nexus, flew straight through a gap in the Krelak formation, and docked with a destroyed airlock. Krelak weapons hit it 17 times. The ship's hull glowed orange, but did not breach. It just kept moving. Vrak watched the feed in disbelief. What is that ship made of? His tactical officer checked the scans. Unknown alloy, Commander. It appears to be a mixture of common asteroid metals and recycled planetary waste. But the density is wrong. There is something inside the hull we cannot identify. The human ship offloaded 24 beings in pressure suits. They moved with mechanical efficiency, cutting through sealed bulkheads, pulling wounded council members from the debris and carrying them back to the ship. They did not fire a single weapon. They did not even look at the Krelak soldiers, watching them from the wrecked docking bay. They just worked. One Krelak soldier, young and nervous, raised his rifle. A human in a scratched white suit turned to face him. The human's faceplate was opaque, but the soldier could see his own reflection in it. The human raised one hand, palm out. Then he pointed at the soldier's weapon, then at the floor. The gesture was clear. Put it down. The soldier hesitated. The human waited. 3 seconds passed. Then the human turned back to his work. The soldier did not fire. He could not explain why. Vrak ordered his ships to destroy the human vessel. 12 heavy cruisers focused their main cannons on the blocky rescue ship. The human ship's hull turned white-hot, then red, then began to melt. But it did not explode. It simply sat there, taking the punishment, while its crew kept pulling survivors from the station. Finally, with its hull breached in a dozen places, the human ship detached from Nexus and jumped away. It left behind a small floating device. The device activated and projected a holographic message in the middle of the Krelak formation. It showed a human face, old, wrinkled, calm. The human spoke in slow, careful galactic standard. You have attacked a council station. You have killed council members. You have violated the accords of shared space. This is your first and only warning. Leave this galaxy within one of your cycles. If you do not, we will remove you. The message ended. The device self-destructed. Vrak laughed. It was a nervous laugh. 1 cycle? It would take his fleet 6 cycles just to repair the damage from the battle. The human was bluffing. They had to be bluffing. He ordered his fleet to hold position and begin salvage operations. They would take Nexus Prime apart piece by piece, then use its resources to fuel the next phase of the invasion. That night, human time, something happened that the Krelak had never experienced before. Their long-range sensors went blind. Not jammed. Not destroyed. Simply overwhelmed. Every frequency, every quantum band, every subspace layer was flooded with noise. White noise. Random data. But buried in that noise, if you listened carefully, was a pattern. A countdown. It started at 60 hours and was already ticking down. The Krelak engineers worked frantically to filter out the noise. They failed. The noise came from everywhere. From empty space. From the asteroid belt. From the surface of dead moons. It was as if the entire outer system had become a single broadcasting antenna. Vrak finally understood. The humans had not been caught off guard. They had not been lucky. They had known. They had known about the Krelak fleet long before it arrived. And they had spent those years preparing. Not just building ships. Building a network. A web of sensors, mines, and automated weapons that covered the entire approach to their system. The ring around Earth was not a shield. It was a factory. It was building something. Something big. He looked at the countdown again. 58 hours remained. He made a decision. He would not wait. He would throw his entire fleet at Earth now, before the humans finished whatever they were building. He ordered all 5 strike groups to converge on Sol. They would burn the human homeworld to ash, then deal with the council later. The fleet jumped. And when they emerged in the Sol system, They found the ring around Earth gone. In its place was a ship. One ship. But it was not like any ship the Krelak had ever seen. It was the size of a small moon. Its surface was covered in weapons ports, sensor arrays, and launch bays. And it was moving. Not toward the Krelak fleet. Toward the Krelak home galaxy. Vrek received a final message. Same human face. Same calm voice. We told you to leave. You didn't listen. So now we are coming to you. The human ship that emerged from the broken ring was called the Last Argument. It had no official designation in any council registry because it had never been registered. Humans had built it in secret, piece by piece, over 40 years. They had mined their own asteroid belt. They had smelted metal in orbit. They had designed and redesigned every component 1,000 times. The Last Argument was not a warship. It was a statement. A single, massive, undeniable statement that said, "Do not test us." When the Krelak fleet saw it, they hesitated. That hesitation lasted exactly 4 seconds. Then Vrak ordered all ships to open fire. Thousands of plasma bolts, kinetic projectiles, and energy beams struck the Last Argument's hull. The hull glowed. It cracked in a few places, but it did not break, because the hull was not solid. It was layered. Each layer was separated by a vacuum gap and a magnetic field. The first layer absorbed the plasma. The second layer deflected the kinetics. The third layer scattered the energy beams. And the fourth layer, the one closest to the ship's core, was made of something the Krelak had never seen before. A crystalline lattice that converted incoming energy into heat, then dumped that heat into space through radiator fins the size of cities. The Last Argument took the entire opening volley and kept moving. Its own weapons, however, did not fire. Instead, the ship launched a cloud of small drones. Thousands of them. Tens of thousands. Each drone was no larger than a human fist. They moved faster than any fighter craft, swarming around Krelak cruisers, attaching themselves to shield generators, sensor domes, and engine nozzles. Then they detonated. Not with massive explosions, but with precise, shaped charges that cut through armor like scissors through cloth. Within 10 minutes, 12 Krelak cruisers were dead in space. Not destroyed, just disabled. Their crews were alive, trapped in powerless hulls, watching their oxygen tick down. The Last Argument did not finish them off. It just moved past them toward the main body of the Krelak fleet. Vrak watched his tactical display turn red. "Fall back," he ordered. "Form a defensive perimeter around the flagship." But there was nowhere to fall back to. The swarm drones were everywhere. And worse, the humans had more ships. Not just the Last Argument. Hundreds of smaller vessels were emerging from the dark side of Earth's moon. They were not beautiful. They were not elegant. They looked like someone had welded engines to cargo containers and then bolted on weapons. But they were fast. And they were numerous. And they moved with a coordination that the Krelak had only ever seen in hive minds. These ships did not attack the Krelak fleet directly. They targeted the supply lines, the fuel depots, the ammunition carriers. The Krelak had come to Sol expecting a quick victory. They had brought only 3 days of supplies. The human ships, in a single coordinated strike, destroyed 2 days' worth of those supplies. The Krelak fleet suddenly had less than 24 hours of combat effectiveness left. Vrak made a desperate call. He ordered his remaining cruisers to form a wedge and push toward Earth. If they could destroy the human homeworld, the Last Argument might retreat. It was a gamble. It was a stupid gamble. But it was the only one he had. The wedge pushed forward. The human defense ships scattered, then reformed behind the wedge, cutting off the Krelak from their own supply ships. The Last Argument turned slowly, its massive bulk rotating to face the wedge. And then, for the first time, it fired its main weapon. The weapon had no official name. The humans who built it called it the door knocker. It was a linear accelerator that ran almost the entire length of the last argument, from bow to stern. It fired a solid tungsten rod, accelerated to a fraction of light speed at the lead Krelak cruiser. The rod punched through the cruiser's shields, through its armor, through its reactor, and out the other side. The cruiser did not explode. It simply came apart, torn into pieces by the kinetic shockwave of the rod passing through it. The remaining Krelak ships broke formation. They had never seen anything like this. They had conquered galaxies. They had faced enemies with advanced technology, psychic powers, and biological weapons. But they had never faced an enemy that built a weapon the size of a moon and used it with such casual brutality. The door knocker fired again. Another cruiser vanished. Then again. A third. Vrak ordered a full retreat. His ships scattered, jumping in random directions, trying to escape the killing field. The last argument did not pursue. It did not need to. The damage was done. The Krelak fleet, once 300 strong, was now less than 100 ships. And those that escaped were not escaping to safety. They were escaping into a trap, because the humans had not just prepared for the battle at Sol. They had prepared for the retreat. Every major jump point within 10 light years of Sol had been seeded with mines. Not explosive mines. Mines that emitted a focused electromagnetic pulse designed to knock out a ship's jump drive mid-transition. Any Krelak ship that tried to jump would find itself torn apart by the jump field collapsing around it. The only safe way out was to travel at sublight speeds, which would take years. Vrak's own ship, the Pride of Creel, had not jumped. He had ordered it to hold position, hoping to negotiate. But the humans were not interested in negotiating. A single human shuttle approached the Pride of Creel and docked with its main airlock. 4 humans in pressure suits stepped onto the bridge. They carried no weapons. They simply walked up to Vrak, looked at him, and one of them spoke. "Your fleet is destroyed. Your supply lines are cut. Your home galaxy is 3 months away at your best speed. You have 2 choices. Surrender now, and your crew will be treated as prisoners of war. Or refuse, and we will send the last argument to your homeworld. It will arrive there before you do." Vrak looked at the human. The human looked back. There was no anger in the human's eyes. No triumph. Just exhaustion. And something else. Certainty. The human knew how this would end. Had known for a long time. Why? Vrak asked. "Why were you ready? How did you know we were coming?" The human removed his helmet. He was young, barely 30 cycles old by his species count. His face was pale, with dark circles under his eyes. He looked tired, but he smiled. It was a small, sad smile. "Because we've been watching," he said. "Not just you, everyone. We joined the Council 40 years ago, and in that time we learned something. The older species look at us and see children. But children watch. Children listen. Children notice when the adults lie. And every species in the Council has lied to us. About the Krelak. About the other threats out there. About the real reason you all wanted us in the Council. You didn't want our help. You wanted our planet. Our resources. Our bodies to throw into wars you were too afraid to fight yourselves." He paused. His smile faded, so we decided to build our own future. Not with your technology. Not with your alliances. With our own hands. Our own minds. Our own stubborn refusal to die. The last argument is not a warship. It's a message. To you, to the Council, to anyone else out there watching. Humanity is ready, and we will never, ever be caught off guard again. Vrack said nothing. He looked at his bridge crew. They were scared. He had never seen Krelak soldiers scared before. He looked back at the human. "I surrender," he said. The human nodded. "Good. Then let's talk about the other threats. The ones the Council didn't tell us about. Because we've seen them too. And we have questions." The surrender of the Krelak fleet sent shockwaves through the Galactic Council. Not because the Krelak had lost, they had lost before, to older, stronger empires, but because of who had beaten them. Humans, the noisy children. The species that had been dismissed as primitive, chaotic, and barely civilized. The species that had no psychic powers, no advanced energy weapons, no ancient wisdom. Just stubbornness. And preparation. Within a standard week, the Council convened an emergency session on a backup station, hidden in a nebula far from Krelak reach. Every ambassador was present, either in person or via hologram. The human ambassador, a woman named Alara Vance, walked into the chamber alone. She wore simple clothes. No ceremonial robes. No medals. No translator earpiece. She spoke Galactic Standard perfectly, having learned it from captured Council databases decades ago. The Taurian ambassador, a crustacean-like being named Zil, spoke first. "Ambassador Vance, your species has committed an act of war against the Krelak Dominion. You have destroyed their fleet. You have taken their commander prisoner. You have threatened their homeworld. By what authority did you do this?" Alara looked at Zil. She did not blink. "By the authority of self-defense. The Krelak attacked our system. They killed Council members on Nexus Prime. They destroyed Taurian shipyards and Xylo supply depots. We responded. We did not start this war. We finished it." The ambassador from the hive of Vorse, a collective of insectoid minds speaking in unison, buzzed with anger. "You finished it? You nearly annihilated an entire fleet. You built a weapon the size of a moon without Council approval. You violated the accords of shared space in a dozen ways." Alara smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "The accords. Let's talk about those. The accords that say no species may build a weapon capable of destroying a planet. The Krelak have 30 such weapons. The Taurians have 12. The Vorse have 7. The humans have 1. And we built ours in secret because we knew you would try to stop us. Not because you care about peace. Because you care about control." The chamber erupted in noise. Ambassadors shouted over each other, demanding answers, demanding apologies, demanding that humans disarm immediately. Alara waited. She let them scream. Then she raised one hand. The chamber fell silent. "I am not here to apologize," she said. "I am here to give you a choice. The Krelak are defeated, but they are not destroyed. Their homeworld still exists. Their industrial base is intact. Their leadership is still alive. In 3 months, they will rebuild. In 6 months, they will attack again. Not us this time. You. Because they know now that the Council is weak. They know that you cannot protect yourselves. And they know that the only species in this galaxy that can stop them is humanity." She pulled a small data crystal from her pocket and placed it on the central table. "This contains everything we know about the Krelak. Their fleet movements, their supply routes, their political weaknesses. We are offering this to the Council for free. Take it, use it, build your own defenses. But know this, we will not fight your wars for you. We defended ourselves. We will defend our allies, if they ask. But we will not be your weapons." The Taurian ambassador clicked his claws together. "And if we refuse your offer? If we demand that you disarm and submit to Council authority?" Alara's smile returned. "Then we will leave. Humanity will withdraw from the Council. We will seal our borders. We will defend our system and our colonies, and we will let the Kreluk do whatever they want to the rest of the galaxy. You think we are dangerous now? Wait until we are no longer bound by your rules." The chamber went silent again. This time, the silence was different. It was not angry. It was thoughtful, because every ambassador in that room knew the truth. The Kreluk were not the only threat. There were others. Older threats. Darker threats. Threats that the Council had been merely holding back for centuries. And without the humans, without their strange, stubborn, unpredictable strength, the Council might not survive. The Hive of Vorse spoke first. "What do you want, human?" Alara leaned forward. "I want the truth. All of it. The records you have hidden from us. The wars you have fought in secret. The species you have exterminated and erased from history. We know you have been lying to us since the day we joined the Council. We want to know why. And we want to know what else is out there. What are you so afraid of?" The Taurian ambassador looked at the other ambassadors. They exchanged silent signals. Then Zil sighed, a wet, rattling sound. "There is a species," he said slowly, "older than the Council, older than the Kreluk, older than any recorded history. They call themselves the Watchers. They do not build ships. They do not mine planets. They do not wage war. They simply observe. For millions of cycles, they have watched the galaxy. They have seen empires rise and fall. They have seen species evolve and go extinct. And they have done nothing. Until now." Alara's expression did not change. "What changed?" Zil hesitated. "You did. The Watchers have never seen a species like yours. You are not the strongest, not the smartest, not the oldest, but you are the most adaptable. You survive things that should kill you. You rebuild from nothing. You turn your greatest weaknesses into strengths. The Watchers are curious about you. And when the Watchers become curious, they become dangerous." He paused. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. "They have sent a probe. It will arrive in your system in 30 days. We do not know what it will do. We do not know if it will communicate, observe, or destroy. But we know this. No species that has attracted the Watcher's attention has ever survived. Not one." The chamber was silent. Even the holograms seemed to hold still. Alara looked at the data crystal in her hand. Then she looked at the ambassadors. 30 days, she said. "That's not much time." Zil nodded. "No, it is not." Alara turned and walked toward the door. She stopped at the threshold and looked back. "Then we'd better get to work." 30 days. That was all the warning humanity had before the Watcher probe arrived. 30 days to prepare for something no species in galactic history had ever survived. The Council offered help. They sent data, theories, and warnings. But they sent no ships, no soldiers, no weapons, because they had none to send. The Watchers did not fight. They did not conquer. They simply arrived, and then the species they were watching ceased to exist. No one knew how. No one knew why. The only thing everyone knew was that it was unstoppable. Humanity did not panic. That was the strangest thing. Ilara Vance thought as she stood on the bridge of the last argument. The humans on Earth, on Mars, on the asteroid colonies, they did not panic. They organized. They built. They prepared. Because that was what humans did. When faced with the impossible, they did not pray. They did not surrender. They made a plan. The plan was simple. Not easy. Simple. Step 1. Learn everything about the Watchers. Step 2. Build something that could stop them. Step 3. Survive. Step 1 was the hardest. The Council's records on the Watchers were fragmented, contradictory, and often terrifying. Entire species had vanished without a trace. Planets that had once held billions of beings were found empty, their cities intact, their technology untouched, but every living thing gone. The Watchers did not destroy. They collected. They observed. And then they took. Ilara assembled a team of human scientists, engineers, and historians. They worked around the clock, analyzing every scrap of data the Council had provided. They found patterns. The Watchers always sent a probe first. The probe would arrive, spend exactly 72 hours in the target system, and then leave. Within 1 standard year, the Watchers themselves would arrive. And then the species would disappear. 70-2 hours. That was the key. The probe was not a weapon. It was a surveyor. It was gathering information. If humanity could prevent the probe from completing its survey, or if they could feed it false information, maybe they could delay the Watchers. Maybe they could buy enough time to find a real solution. Step 2. Build something that could stop the probe. The last argument was powerful, but it was designed to fight conventional wars. The Watcher probe was not conventional. It was not even fully physical. According to Council records, the probe existed partially in normal space, and partially in what the scientists called quantum foam, the chaotic underlying structure of reality itself. You could not shoot it. You could not touch it. You could only observe it. So humanity built an observer. A network of sensors spread across the entire Sol system, designed to detect the probe's quantum signature. They built it in 29 days. They used every resource they had. They stripped the asteroid belt. They diverted comets. They converted the ring around Earth into a massive computational array. By the time the probe arrived, humanity had the most advanced sensor network in galactic history. The probe appeared without warning. One moment, there was empty space near Jupiter. The next, the probe was there. It was small, no larger than a human shuttle. It was perfectly smooth, perfectly black, and it did not reflect any light. It simply hung in space, silent and still. The sensor network went to work. Every telescope, every radar, every quantum detector focused on the probe. Data flooded into the last argument's computers. And the humans saw something no one had ever seen before. The probe was not a machine. It was a living thing. A creature of pure information, wrapped in a shell of solidified quantum foam. It was feeding. It was drinking in data from every sensor, every signal, every stray particle in the system. It was learning. And the more it learned, the more solid it became. Ilara watched the data stream on her display. "It's not just observing," she said. "It's consuming. It's turning our own information into mass. If it keeps feeding, it will grow large enough to open a permanent bridge for the Watchers." The human science team had already anticipated this. They had built a countermeasure, a device called a quantum jammer. It was a small sphere, barely a meter across, that emitted a random signal on every quantum frequency simultaneously. The idea was simple. Overwhelm the probe's ability to process information. Fill it with so much noise that it could not extract useful data. The jammer was deployed from the last argument. It drifted toward the probe, broadcasting its chaotic signal. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the probe twitched. Its smooth surface rippled. It stopped feeding. It turned. And it looked directly at the last argument. Elara felt a chill run down her spine. The probe was not just a machine. It was intelligent. And it was angry. The probe fired a beam of pure quantum energy at the last argument. The beam passed through the ship's armor like it wasn't there. It passed through the crew. It passed through the reactor. And it kept going, out the other side of the ship, into space. No one was hurt. No equipment was damaged. But every human on board felt something. A presence. A weight. As if something was looking inside their minds, reading their thoughts, their memories, their fears. Then the beam stopped. The probe hung motionless again, and a voice spoke, not aloud. Inside every human's head, the same voice, the same words. Interesting. The probe vanished, not jumped, not moved, simply ceased to exist in normal space. The sensor network reported that it was still there, but only in the quantum foam. It was waiting, watching, learning. The 72-hour countdown began. Alara gathered her team. It adapted, she said. The jammer worked for a few seconds, but it adapted. We need something else. The lead scientist, a woman named Dr. Aries Thorne, shook her head. We don't have time. 72 hours isn't enough to build a new countermeasure. We need a different approach. We need to talk to it. Talk to it? Alara frowned. It just tried to read our minds. No, Aries said. It tried to understand us. There's a difference. The Watchers have never encountered a species that fought back. Not like this. Not with preparation and intelligence. They're curious. And curiosity can be a weakness. The plan was insane. Alara knew it. Her team knew it. But it was the only plan they had. They would send a signal to the probe. Not a jammer. Not a weapon. A message. A simple, honest message that said, we see you. We know what you are. And we want to understand you as much as you want to understand us. The message was encoded in the simplest possible format. Binary, 1 and 0. On and off. It was the first language humanity had ever used to speak to machines. It felt right to send it now. The probe received the message. For 6 hours, nothing happened. Then the probe responded. Its response was also in binary. It was a single question. Translated, it read, "What are you?" Alara sent the answer. "We are the ones who refuse to disappear." Another 6 hours passed. Then the probe responded again. This time, the message was longer. Much longer. It contained data, history. The Watchers were not destroyers. They were archivists. They collected species not to harm them, but to preserve them. Every species they had ever visited was still alive, stored in a massive quantum simulation, living out their lives in perfect detail. The Watchers did not kill. They saved. They saved everything, but they had never encountered a species that fought back. That refused to be saved. That chose struggle over safety. And that, the probe admitted, was fascinating. The 72-hour mark arrived. The probe began to leave. But before it vanished completely, it sent one final message. We will not return to your system. You are too unpredictable. We will observe from a distance. And we will wait. Perhaps one day, you will come to us. We would like that. The probe was gone. The sensor network went quiet. The Sol system was safe. Alara leaned back in her chair. She was tired. More tired than she had ever been. But she was also smiling. Because she had learned something in the past 30 days. Humanity was not the strongest species. Not the smartest. Not the oldest. But they were the most stubborn. And sometimes stubbornness was enough. She looked out the viewport at Earth. The planet was still there. The people were still there. And the last argument was still there, ready for whatever came next. We're still here, she whispered. And we're not going anywhere. Behind her, the bridge crew cheered. It was a small sound in the vast silence of space. But it was enough. It was always enough.